Good afternoon, everyone. This is Robin Carter. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator out of Flower Mound, Texas, and today I'm here to share some alternates using the January 2023 Key to My Heart Paper Pumpkin Kit. Now, as I mentioned in my unboxing in my first video, I wasn't going to make Valentine cards with these. I was going to make more all-occasion cards. So that's what I'll be doing today. If you are new to my channel, I would really appreciate if you would hit the subscribe button. And if you would like to receive notifications of when I post a new video, hit the ring bell for notifications of that. And if you are already a subscriber of mine, I thank you so much for helping support my channel. So today I'm going to be using this card base to make 3 alternates, adding my own white card bases and some other products. So let me go ahead and start with my first one. So this is my first alternate that I used, and as I did in my first alternates, I wanted to use Sale-a-bration products that some of you may have received. So for this card, I used this paper pack called Favored Flowers. It's the 12 by 12 paper that is available as a free item with any $50 merchandise product. And as you can see right here, I just cut out this flower out of this piece of paper. So I'm going to be cutting out this flower, and you may be thinking, oh wow, that's close to the edge, but so long as you snip in there and go around, it should be okay. Now I chose to cut that leaf off, but if you don't have any other leaf items, you can easily leave that on. So let me get started with this project. So the first thing you want to do is take your card base and your paper trimmer, and then decide what size front you like. So I like to leave, sorry for all the lights glaring, I like to leave a little white border around my cards. So I cut it a little smaller than 4 1/4. So you want to look and see, okay, is it going to be off if I cut this at 4 1/4? Is it going to be, not 4 1/4, 4 1/8? Is it going to be too much gold over here, too much, is it equal spacing, I guess, in the design? And this one, I think I'm not worried about it because it is a distressed look. And so I'm going to cut this one at 4 1/8. Okay, so save this for our next projects. And then, since I cut that at 4 1/8, you'll want to cut this to 5 3/8. And I can already see there's more up here than down here. So I'm going to cut at this end at 5 3/8. So you go 5 and then the second largest one's over that way. Okay, so this can be just scrap. I'm not going to use that for anything. Way too tiny. So now we have our card front ready. So I'm going to put away my trimmer. And this card is real easy to put together, but I think it has a nice bold image, and I think it's beautiful. I guess to summarize that. So now you want to get your paper, and you'll want some fine detail scissors, and I like the Stampin' Up! Paper snip. And so I'm just going to start cutting. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the leaf because the leaf won't be much good on its own. And if you don't already know, when you're fussy cutting, you want to turn the paper more than the scissors. Now I'm working with a big sheet here. It would be easier if I cut it off, but I didn't want to cut it with my paper trimmer in a place where I may want to use another element fussy cut out of it. So just work around in the grooves. And sometimes when I get to a place like this, then I do just cut it off so I can work with it easier. And now I can go in and do the details. You can leave as much border as you prefer. If you don't want any border, I guess you could cut it right at the flower. I think the black really makes it pop, so I'm leaving a little bit on there. And it's so it doesn't look like I was right on the edge. I'm going to cut into this little black place and then kind of round the flowers some, so it doesn't look like a flat edge. So that is our flower we're going to use. And then I grabbed one of my punches. So this project, believe it or not, does not use any, well, I lied. It does use some die cuts, but you don't have to add those flowers. So let me get my card bases. Okay, and then as I always tell you, feel to see if there's one side that's a hair bigger, and to me that side is bigger. So see, we cut that like that. So I'm going to decide, do I want this, do I want it this way? I don't think so. I think that darker spot there looks better on the bottom. So I'm going to get my Tombow multi-purpose liquid glue, and it's the green, what we call the green glue. It's not green, actually, it's just in the green bottle. So I put this in a fine tip bottle, and I just use dots around my fronts to put the card on. And by using the liquid glue, it gives me a little bit of wiggle room when I set it on my card base to, if it's not centered, I can move it around a little bit. Let's add this. Okay. And then what I'm going to be using on the next card, and I did use some elements from this Around the Bin bundle. Now this bundle is new in the mini Stampin' Up catalog from January through April of 2023. And just take note that this is available for 4 months. They're trying to get in, let me move my camera a little bit. Hopefully it didn't make you dizzy. They're going to get back online where their new annual catalog starts in May. So the prior years, these overlapped and people ran into some issues with the in colors that will be retiring, that they were still using product that used those in colors, but they were discontinued when the new catalog came out. Anyway, back to the Around the Bin bundle. It is on page 35 of the mini catalog. And as you can see, you don't be confused, which right here, let me see if I can show you. There is a C and a P. So you can choose this bundle whether you want it in the cling mount or the photopolymer, cling mount stamps or the photopolymer style. So that depends on red rubber or the clear ones that you can see through. Now I chose red rubber. I just love red rubber, the way it stamps cleanly. I don't usually have any problems with it. So I chose that. Now I will say with sentiments, I do generally prefer the photopolymer because you can see through them. But again, these give me a much cleaner stamp. So I always choose the red rubber if I have a choice. So that's what I have for today. So I'm going to set this aside. And I'm going to show you some of the dies. So these are the dies that come in that bundle. And when you're looking at it in the catalog, you may just focus on the curvy dies that they have. But let me tell you, I love all these little leaves and the flowers. And let me show you why. Hope it shows on the camera. So any die that I can get extra embossing on, that probably doesn't show up too well. It gives it much more detail. Now I also have a scan and cut, but no way can my scan and cut create these dainty little flowers. So even though I have a scan and cut, I do still love detailed dies. Gosh, let me get that out of the way. I don't know, does that show? It may not even focus. But there's little embossing on these leaves. So that's what I love about these detailed dies. So I'm going to get out this stamp. Now I don't like how I left that too straight. So let me go back in and fix this. Now I did look at the coordinating colors for this, and it is Mossy Meadow, and the coordinating colors on the back of your pack of cardstock. That might be better. But I didn't like just that one leaf, so I'm going to cut it off again. who knows, I may cut another leaf, and if I get enough of these, I can put them on another flower that I cut out. Okay, so I just store all my scraps back in the designer series paper pack. I just cut it open from the top, and I may have mentioned this in a prior video, but when I go to cut these off, I get my scissors and I stick it along the back, this cardboard, to slice it. That way I don't accidentally cut my pretty paper. So I'm going to put this back up so I don't lose it. And see, I have some other scraps in here that, well, surely I'm not going to lose this big sheet of paper. So we'll just, there it goes. I'll just set it aside. Okay, and not lose my scissors from it. All right, so now we have our flower. Now I had a hard time going, which way does the flower go? But I think I noticed these petals right here that seem to be going up. Those do too, but these are more prominent. They're bigger, so I did the flower that way. Now on this card, I used Old Olive. But on my next card, I used Mossy Meadow, and I think I liked that better. So I'm going to use the Mossy Meadow on this card. All right, so I just have some leaves, and I just kind of put them where I think it looks good. No right or wrong, just whatever you like. So once I get them where they're showing, that looks pretty good. I just get a glue dot. I have to find mine. The little dots that come in the paper pumpkin kit is what I use because they're small. This is another kit, but I just use them till they're gone. And I'm going to put it, this may seem backwards, but I'm going to put it over it. Over the stem that'll get covered up by the flower. Oops. Well, come back. Okay, so that's good. Now you could leave that backing on if you wanted to, or take it off. I'm going to take it off. Don't know why. That one may need another one. Or you could use Scotch tape, but I like using these dots. I'm going to put another one on him because he didn't go well. Okay, so that way it stays, semi-stays, where I want it for my flower. Now to make it stay for sure, I get some more of these dots. This is my take your pick tool that I love to use, and I put it under a good size leaf. Whoops. So that it stays. And then press that down. And this one needs one as well. We have finally thawed out from our ice, and that is a good thing. That was a side tidbit. Okay, and then this one I'm going to put under this big leaf. So you could use just a teeny bit of adhesive, but these dots work well for me on that. Okay, so now I'm going to put my flower, and I'm going to put it up with dimensionals. You all know I love dimensionals. So let me get out my little bucket of goodies that I keep a bunch of dimensionals in. And I'm just going to finish up a sheet I've been using. And y'all know I also like, if you've watched any of my videos, I like to cut my dimensionals in half. The large ones anyway. The mini ones are fine. Here's this one. And so even though I cut them in half, I think I covered up very well with more areas and used less product. So there's a little dimensional saving technique for you if you haven't thought about that. Put one there and one in the middle. So had I not cut them in half, I would have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I would have used 7 full-size dimensionals. But this way I used 3.5. This is where my table always gets messy. And I find these little backings all over the house sometimes. I guess they stick on the bottom of my socks or shoes. All right. Oops. Left one on. That's why I always do a little light touch to see did I get it off. Okay. So then you want to see where you like your flower. And I'm going to bring it down a little bit to show a little more gold, kind of like I did on this one. Okay, and then just commit that down. Now for I'll get this out of the way. I have more tips on that in a second. So on my sentiment, I wanted to use a punch rather than die cuts because not all of you have a die cut machine, which if you're new to this would be a good thing just to cut, and you could cut your own label. But adding a punch isn't too hard. So let me grab that punch a second. Okay, this is the Lovely Me label punch. And I have a little stash that I have stored in an embellishment container. I pre-punch a lot of those, so I have them ready to go. So here it is. And I did use the sentiment out of the Around the Bend. I set it aside. Now I need to find it. Here it is on my left hand side. So I just did the hello there. It's here. Okay, and then I used the little leaves to add decoration on top. Now you may be going, Robin, what are those little tabs on your stamp? Well, cling stamps do what they say. They cling, and they cling very well. So these are just the backings from my label machine, so that when I put this on a block, let me get a full-size block. This is a D block, so that when I put them on here, I'm not tearing up my stamp. It gives me a place to pull and get my stamp off easier. Sometimes, especially, I'm known for leaving them on there a long time, and the longer you leave them on, the harder they are to get off. So I'm going to use my Memento black ink for this sentiment. Okay, and I'm going to do, I have a bunch. If I don't get this straight, we'll see. So I think my label is pretty straight, and hopefully this sentiment is good. So I let it sit there a second so that ink has a time to soak into the paper. And then I'm going to pick up my leaf with this one to get it ready. See, nice clear image. So, and to not gunk up my chamois or my scrub, I do a piece of paper. And especially with your detailed stamps, I find that this the Stampin' Scrub works the best. It gets down into every little groove. That's the wet side. It has a little droplets, and this one has a little sunshine for dry. So this also works well, kind of priming your photopolymer stamps as well as the Stampin' Scrub. Now, I always forget what 1/8 is in inches, so I have a little cheat sheet post-it note that I keep on my scrub. Okay, and then for my leaves, I'm going to use Mossy Meadow, but I'm going to, I think I'm going to stamp off so it's not quite so dark. Let me get a scrap piece of paper that I can stamp off on. Not him, he's a template. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to stamp on and then over my sentiment. So that's called second generation ink. It's a little lighter. Stamp once, and I'm going to turn it and stamp there. So there is my sentiment label with the leaves stamped off. And then so I don't get ink on everything, I want to close that up get my little wet piece of paper towel. And I'm going to get my scrub again to make sure I got everything out of the leaf. Now I do prime this with the Stampin' Mist plus a spray of water. And after you have some Stampin' Mist on there, you can just reactivate it by applying water for a while. And then you're not having to always use your Stampin' Mist. You can just reactivate it. So now I have another tip. So I believe this ribbon is still on the clearance rack. It is the Fine Art ribbon, and I love that it had little gold flecks in it. So it went well with this product, and I'm going to show you my ribbons. I always have ribbon saving techniques. So I want this to look like it was woven all throughout the bag. So I just get a little bit, and let me get my ribbon scissors. These are very sharp ribbon scissors. So I just make a loop like that and cut it off, okay? And then I tape it on. You could use adhesive, you could use double stick tape, but I'm going to use Scotch tape. For one, I can kind of move it. I guess you can with a dot too. Okay? And then I take another for my other side. Cut that at an angle because my next ones I'll need at an angle. All right. For one, I have a hard time weaving it like to make it look like this. So this is my cheat way of doing it. Then I just cut off two little flags. And so I can put those where I want. And this one down here. So what do you think about that? Do you like that tip? And it stays. Okay, so now I'm going to put this on with dimensionals as well. So where did they go? Here they are. And now I want one in the middle to help it not sink. And I need to cut some more in half. And use the whole thing. Don't just think you got to use the buttons. I will use that on something else. I know I call them buttons, but you know what I mean. The cut ones out. Okay, I got all those off. Getting a little stash of dimensional backings. So now I'll decide, do I want it like this one where it's higher up, or do I want it lower? And I like that just a little bit of gold showed, so I added it there. Okay, so there's my alternates with the front of the Fresh Freesia card out of the paper pumpkin kit. And don't forget, I also used, this one's an old olive for this one. I also used the leaf stamp out of the around the bin to do my envelopes. I thought that was a nice little touch. So I can put these away and we'll get on to our next alternate. All right, I'm gonna set those up there so I don't get ink on them. I sometimes do that. Okay, the next alternate is a little more on the Avid side because it uses the dies from the Around the Bin kit. So I do have a tip on this for you. This one I added the scallop. It's easier to see here. That coordinates with this die as well. So you can use it individually or you can add it on top of this like I did. So I'm going to show you my tip, which on my second one, by the way, if you cut your paper carefully, you can get 2 out of that. And that's how I said I did 3. So, whoops, card base is flying. So this is the other one, and I just used this bag. So as you can see, that uses that. And then somewhere, yeah, there's that side. So you can get 2 out of this piece, and that's what I did. I'm not going to actually cut this for you, but I'm going to show you my tip to do it. So this one I added the dots. This one I did not. I'm going to show you my tip on adding the dots. You know I love using a Stamparatus, and since this is cling, I do not need my deluxe mat because it has a grid already. So I have a piece of white cardstock. That's not a card base. And you notice this is extra long. Well, I recommend you start with a piece that's extra long. Well, let me just grab one. I have lots of white paper. Okay, so get one that's long enough. Okay, and then as usual, do not put the stamp right on the corner. Oops. So you're going to want to stamp the whole thing. Let me just scoot this over. It doesn't really matter where it is. Okay, that looks good. And I'm going to use Fresh Freesia ink. Sorry about that. The phone going off. I did not silence it. Alright, so I'm inking this up with Fresh Freesia ink. Alright. And another thing in the Stamparatus, if I don't get it good, I can go back and re-ink it, which I'm going to do. Let me stick the stamp set underneath here. That'll help me get good pressure. And by the way, this was the Stampin' Spot we got in the kit, so I just have the full-size pad. Alright, I'm going to press pretty well, give that a second to soak in. That's probably what I didn't do before. Okay, so I also need to show you, while that's soaking in, I'll show you the flowers and the other die cuts that are in this kit. So not only are the leaves, oops, bending a leaf, detailed, but so are the flowers. They have little embossing inside of it. I don't know if that shows. And then these little flowers, it's one die, and you cut 3 out at once. And I'm just going to use one, and I'm going to put it in the center of that, just to add a little more detail. Now, this stamp cuts the corner as well, and when you cut, you'll just want to pay attention that it cuts on this side, not this side. So it'll leave that open, like this. Now, I had a piece of scrap old olive, and I just wanted to see what it looked like. So that is the die. Now, if you wanted a whole bunch of leaves quickly, you could easily just cut these off, and then you have leaves. So that's another good tip for that. I'll stick this back in I keep little scraps that I cut in the back of the die set, so that when I go to use it, if I have some cut, they're already ready. Okay. Okay, so this is why you want to cut the whole thing. Because, and same thing when you cut this. I would get a piece that's big enough for this, and this is, you know, unfortunately you only have your full card base. So I would not trim your Fresh Freesia down to 5 3/8 yet, because you're going to want to be able to get this lined up with that. If you don't do the whole thing and you only did part of it, and this one you did a different part, then your little curve would not match up. So I've already done that here for myself, and I put it on the back, and you can see I had to trim off some. It wasn't exactly lined up, so I lined it up there, and then trimmed my white where it would match my scallop. So there is my tip for using the Around the Bend stamp and dies together. So I've already done that, so we're going to put that card together. And if you have any questions at all, please leave a comment below. I love reading comments and ideas you guys may have different than me. Okay, so I have put all this up. So the dies do not come with this little magnet piece. I add that, and it's just, I add it to the piece that comes from Stampin' Up. And then I always write how many dies here. Now something new I didn't really pay attention to before is they used to add the name, this is crooked, that'll drive me nuts, on this clear plastic sleeve, but they quit putting that on there. Now I did this anyway because it was so small I couldn't hardly see it. So I always added a label, but now they come blank. I guess that's good if you don't store excuse me, your dies in here. I'll work on that later. Then you're not having to worry about hiding that name. Okay, so I'm going to put my little leaf together. I'm just going to add some, I'm going to use a glue dot. I think I did adhesive on my other one. So I'm going to put it on my little flower. And I'm going to kind of curve him on this one. I didn't do so much on that. I'll put him there. And I'm also going to take this and kind of curl my things. You can use your bone folder. To me, that's easier. But if you don't have this, you can easily use your, take your pick tool as well. Okay, so let me get another card base that I have. Let me feel which side. I think it's going to be that side. So when I cut, let me give you another tip about cutting designer series paper. So let me get out my pack again. I chose this because it also adds other color to match with this pale petal pink, excuse me, color. Okay, so this was my full sheet. Let me see if I can match it up. That's going to be, anyway, it doesn't matter. Let me just show you. So rather than cut at, oh, it went like this. That's it. That might match up. No, it doesn't. Rather than cut at 4, especially if you're going that way, a card this way. If you cut at 4 and you're using US 5 1/4, you're going to have a little strip left down here. And what I would do with those would be to put them on the inside of the card. But if you first cut at 5, and I think I did this 5 1/2 in case I wanted to go all the way, and you do another 5 1/2, you're going to have a full 1-inch strip that can be used on other cards rather than just having a 4-inch strip. So that's how I like to cut my paper. This pattern doesn't matter, but when you're cutting, just if there is a certain way you want your paper to go, be mindful of that. So I cut these to, I did cut this to 5 3/8. But I think I ended up cutting this to 5 1/4 because I wanted more white to show. Yeah, pretty much 5 1/4. So I'm going to go ahead and trim one end of this. Get my trimmer out and trim to 5 1/4. Okay, so that matches up. So then I just put these over each other. So you don't have to use a full sheet of this because you're going to cover it up. So that one was about 2 inches. This one was a little bigger because it went up higher and I didn't have this extra little scallop or the line there. Can you see that there's more white on that one? So when you're measuring what size, you just want to say, okay, what's the highest point that goes up to? And then you can put a square piece there. Okay, before I adhere this to the card, I'm going to work on my sentiment. This one I didn't do so well. It's a little further down here than I would like. And this is where if you got the photopolymer one, you could see through. So for this one, I needed a bigger block so I could see. Now, I still have the old Stampin' Up jig. And I'm sorry it's not available through Stampin' Up anymore. But I think they are available at places. So I like to use that. And I'm going to use... last time I used Highland Heather because I wanted it to show up. I'm going to actually use my Memento black ink and see what it looks like. You can never go wrong with the black. Alright, so how you do this is you ink up your stamp. This is an imaging sheet or something close. And my desk is slippery. So you want to hold your imaging sheet into the T. This is a big block. And then you just want to put your block in the T and stamp. And that's just my initials so that when we're in class, I know that's mine. Okay, then you want to put it where you want your stamp to go. And I think it works best just higher up. And that's okay, it's not going over a U. So then you put that there. Now, if you're having trouble with this moving, I think that's what may have happened. You could use some temporary adhesive and hold that down, or you could put it in your, you know what, let me do that. Put it in my Stamparatus and I can put my magnet on it. So let's redo that. So I'll use this one on my third card. Alright, so let me get this imaging sheet. And this is where I inevitably get black ink all over everything because this is still, it won't dry on this sheet. Alright, so that's where I want the sentiment. And now, oh, let me get in the screen. Okay, and then I magnet that down. And I need my stamp. I ink it up. Wish my thing would fit here. Which it doesn't. I have to move it down. You know what? I should do that and then move my paper. We're all learning, aren't we? Whoops. Great. Got ink on myself. That's what this paper towel is good for. Alright. I'm going to re-ink that in case it got a little dry. Remove this. And now we press. Why did that not work? I did it the wrong way. Okay. Is that where I stamped it? Let's do that again. Sorry, technical difficulties. Okay, now that I have it in there, I'm going to put it up here and stamp. Now that was on my imaging sheet. So now I can bring it down to where I want it. I think I forgot which way I stamped on the imaging sheet. Yes, I know I'm a little perfectionist on these kinds of things, but that's just me. I try to get it perfect. Okay, some of you might just be fine with going down on it, but I wanted to try to get this one better, and I like that one better, and I do like the black. So here is the first one. Thanks for being patient on me doing that method. Now before this gets on any cards, I'm going to wipe it off and we'll put that away. That was the only thing we had before the Stamparatus as far as getting things even and restamping in case you did not get a good image. So as you can see from me fiddling with that, it was much more difficult. Back to the card. Now I wanted to glue it this way so more fresh freesia showed on the card. Some of you may like it this way because the leaves stand up. Okay, well now I do too. So we're gonna go with that. The other side is pretty as well. Am I too far zoomed out? Would y'all prefer a closer look? Let me know in the comments, and next time I'll try to do that. Let me just pull this down and you can have more of a look. That's probably a better position. All right, that's the one I want. I want my leaf going up. So I'm going to glue this down and just look for equal border on the left, right, and bottom. And then press that down. And then I'm going to get my liquid glue. Let me hold this up so I don't get it on the card base since it's white on white. Okay. Then I'm going to do the same thing. Look for equal border, left and right, and even, mainly on the top, and then even with your designer series paper there. So then I give it a little press, and I wanted to dress it up a little bit and add more color. So I'm going to add that, and I'm going to get my pre-cut Musty Meadow leaves that were from the dies of this kit. So this is where I do like to lay them down first, because if I got my flower too high, my leaves would come up. Now this one also has this kind of leaf. Does that show? I don't know. So I'm going to use the little bitty twig here on this one. Let me get it a little further away. I like that. So I'm going to do my other trick of just putting a glue dot over it. Take your pick tool. All kinds of goodies now on my desk. Well, I folded that one, but we're going to get him on there. I did the same thing. Okay, now I'm going to put one under the leaf before I put my flower. Does that show? So I know he'll stay. And this leaf. Oops, I left my backing in there. There he comes. All right, now we can do our leaf, and I am going to take that off because I'm not sure if my dimensional would not stick. So I'm going to put him on with a dimensional. Now this one I am going to use one full dimensional because he goes right in the center. And press him down, and then later I will get out my pearls and add a pearl in the center like I did. So how do you like these alternates using just one fresh freesia card base, and your celebration products can get you this look. So anyway, these are my alternates for today. I'm going to clean up my area while I gab just a little bit. Don't forget, celebration runs through February 28th, and all items are while supplies last. They also added a few products to the celebration offerings that you can choose instead of the original stuff that was in the catalog. So to view those items, you can go online to stampinup.com, and then there's a section at the top called Sales and Specials. And then under that you can choose Celebration. And then there's a tab for whether it's a $50 purchase item or $100 item. So you can see all the products offered at one spot online. It's awfully crooked, or my camera's awfully crooked, one of those. So again, let me know what you think about this. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. And if you are an existing subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing and supporting me. Remember, you can always purchase a prepaid subscription with Paper Pumpkin, and with just a few items more, you qualify for hostess rewards as well as free celebration items. And there is also a Stampin' Up! Special to join. So if you're interested in joining as a demonstrator or even a hobbyist, you can also do that as well. And there's a special, which I have the details for that on my blog, and I'll try to put it in the description below with a link to that. If you are a new Paper Pumpkin subscriber and you do not have a demonstrator, I will also leave a link in the description box below of how you can subscribe as me as your demonstrator, where you will get PDFs of any alternates I make, as well as a sleeve to store your stamp set in. So thanks for joining me today. I have more alternates to use with the Petal Pink. I want to call it Pale Papaya. The Petal Pink card, and I'm going to see if I can do something different, but I really like using this around the bin bundle. I like the look of that. So we'll see if I do the same thing and we can see how it looks different. And anyway, subscribe to my channel, share and like this with any others of your friends that may be Paper Pumpkin subscribers. Thanks for joining me today. Until my next video, have a great one.